Hey yo, salute to the people. It's the social forecast. Today is Friday, June 21st, 2019. I hope you all do something today to further your goals and to help you realize your dreams. All right, let's get into it. It just came across my desk. I was reading a news article in the Hill reported by the Associated Press. Republican governor of Alabama, Kay Ivey, signed a bill into law to allow Presbyterian Church in Alabama to have its own police force. I thought this was interesting. I want to read you guys the story. I'm not really doing this blog to really have an opinion on what I think about it necessarily, because I'm more curious than anything about one of the tidbits mentioned in this news article. And I'm really just curious about what any commenters might think about it. Seeing a lot of comments, some just rhetoric having to do with Trump and the left versus the right. But anyway, news article reports that the law approved during the most recent legislative session gives Briarwood Presbyterian Church and its private school on the same campus the ability to hire private police officers who can make arrests if crimes are committed on the property. This is according to the Associated Press. Officials from the church say a private police force is necessary to adequately secure the church and school, which has 2,000 students and faculty on its campus. I thought this part was interesting because the way I see it, in my opinion, there are countless number of universities and community colleges that have their own police force. So as I was reading this, at first I thought, okay, on the school aspect, it seems normal, that if you have that many students, it seems normal that you would have or be able to have some kind of a police presence, because plenty of colleges, even the colleges that I went to, had their own, police force on campus that was for that institution or for that university. So I didn't really see a problem there. What I thought was strange was the fact that if we're going to start treating churches as institutions being in need of and having the privilege to hire private police officers, what will that look like? I mean, would that have any effect on parishioners? Would that have any effect on members of those churches, regardless of what the denomination is or the religious background of that church? Are people going to feel more comfortable, less comfortable? Is that going to be more of a enticement for potential mass shooters? For potential mass shooters and people who would seek to commit violent crimes at churches, as we have seen recently. And then the last part of the article, the law also applies to the church's private academy located in a nearby county. The police will have the same powers as regular police. That part I understand. But here's the part that is very confusing to me. I'm looking to get you guys' opinion on it. Randall Marshall, the executive director of the ACLU of Alabama, told the Associated Press that the law could give the church the ability to not report criminal activity that occurs on its property. He said the law will likely be challenged in court. And that's the part that I don't understand. A police force, whether it's private police force or a police force that is funded by public taxpayer dollars, police forces on college campuses, universities, hospitals, if they're given the power to arrest people for criminal activity, once you make an arrest, isn't that something that would go into the system? Isn't that an official charge? Isn't that something that would have to be reported? Because if that's the case and it wouldn't have to be reported, then how can an arrest be made? And if an arrest is made, but the crime doesn't have to be reported, where would these potential criminals be held, or these people being charged, where would that end up? Because if you're going to be charged with something, whether by a private police force, a publicly funded police force, whether you're charged with something as an inmate in a correctional facility, be it state or federal or at the county level, those charges still turn into, at some point, street charges where you can have to be called into court to answer for those charges and essentially be sentenced ultimately on those charges. So that part I don't get. Are they saying that having a private police force, that if there are crimes committed, that it would be at the discretion of that church, of the parishioners there, of the board members of the church, of the faculty of that private police force, who would be paid by that church, essentially paid by the members of that church through their tithing and their donations? Are they saying that the discretion would be left up to those individuals in that institution to decide whether or not to formally charge, to formally arrest those parties? Because if that's the case, are we saying that the separation of church and state, even with them having the ability to have a private police force, that they now have the right to decide which crimes should go reported, which crimes should go charged, which crimes should warrant an arrest versus which crimes shouldn't? Because that I don't see how it would be possible unless you're basically saying you're giving the church sovereignty over state and federal. So now you're essentially making these individuals, this institution, and all individuals who belong to it, so to speak, a sovereign nation. Kind of like the Amish. Kind of like how the sovereign citizens who declare their sovereignty over the American state, local, and federal government, and not under the jurisdiction of local police and the court. Because if you have a victimless crime, I guess that would be one thing. But if you have a crime where there's a victim, and that victim is a United States citizen, wouldn't the obligation there be to, at least for the benefit of that victim, and if that victim chooses to, wouldn't the obligation there be to report that crime? So that would be very interested to see how that turns out. And I think that might be why Randall Marshall of the ACLU is saying that that's going to be challenged in court. So it'll be really interesting to see how that turns out. So I came across that. I was interested in it. Thought I wanted to bring it to you guys. Interested in the comments. If anybody out in Alabama who happens to come across this is familiar with this law, is familiar with what's going on there, I would be very curious to know what you feel about it, what your thoughts on, maybe some clarity. And that's pretty much it. Like, comment, and subscribe. I don't pretend to know everything. It's the Social Forecast. See you on the next one. Peace and love.